Hi, everyone. Welcome to our this week's edition of SuperNova Commencements. I'm Kashi Sehgal. We have a really incredible show for you today. We're excited for all you graduates, young professionals, everybody who's joining us today. Get your questions ready because we have an amazing guest. Let me bring her on screen. Tanya Sam.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, how are you?
I'm great. How are you, Kashi?
Doing great. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. Hi, everyone. And I'll just start off by saying congratulations. Yay. This is epic. This is monumental. And I'm happy to be here.
Well, we're excited for you to share some of your wisdom with us and how you've navigated life. So let's just jump right in. Oh, before we do all of this, I should probably introduce Tanya. So I feel like everybody should know who you are by now, but Tanya is Director of Partnerships at Tech Square Labs, which is an amazing co-working and incubator space here in Atlanta. She started an investment fund called the Ambition Fund, and we're going to talk more about that. And she is a nurse.
Mm-hmm.
She is also on a show you might have heard of called Real Housewives of Atlanta. She just does a lot of things. So very well-rounded and very expansive. So we have lots to learn today. So Tanya, tell us, let's start it with a relatively easy question. Yeah. Where did you go to school? And do you remember who your graduation speaker was?
Oh my goodness. Wow. What a great question. So I grew up, born and raised in Toronto, Canada. So I went to, high school in Toronto, and then I ended up doing my first undergraduate degree at McGill University in Montreal, Quebec. And I know this is horrible. I can barely remember my graduation or my graduation speaker. I have no clue, guys.
Okay.
I'm really sorry about that.
Most people don't. There have only been a few people who have. So it's just interesting.
Unless you have someone like epic, like Obama was, at Morehouse or something last year. I feel like I probably had a very sound person.
Or unless you get all your student loans paid for, right?
Right. Exactly. Like when Robert Smith was like, you get no debt, you get no debt. Right. That didn't happen to me. But to answer your question, McGill University, I did a degree in genetics and cell biology. I then graduated, did some research. I was working in a lab with a lot of Drosophila flies. This was, years ago, we were working on gene therapy, and then decided I didn't want to research anymore, completely switched paths. I didn't want to go to med school, and did a combined accelerated Bachelor of Science Masters in nursing at University of Toronto.
Wow. Yeah. So you became a nurse. How did you go from nursing to technology and investing?
So I'll answer that just a little bit with framework of my family. I grew up in Toronto. My mom is British, white. My dad is West African from Ghana, black. So, mixed heritage. And I don't know if anyone grew up in a very immigrant household. It was like, you're going to go, and my dad was a doctor. You're either going to be a doctor, a lawyer, a dentist. Honestly, I feel like that was pretty much it. So everyone in my family
Indian household.
You get this. Yeah. There's no other in-betweens. There's no go find yourself gap year, etc. So I, a lot of my uncles, aunts, etc. were doctors. So I knew I'd be somewhere in the medical field. So the thought of entrepreneurship just didn't occur to me. And I say this to you guys now because oftentimes, starting out from graduation, you've got this sort of tunnel vision of, views that might have been impressed upon you by your parents of what you should do because of what was surrounding you. So the thought of, being an entrepreneur or starting, it just did not occur to me because I hadn't seen a lot of people do it. My dad delivered babies. So I ended up working for 10 years in bone marrow transplant, hematology, oncology, and other aspects of medicine. And I got sort of indoctrinated into entrepreneurship because I started dating my fiance, who was like a cybersecurity entrepreneur, multiple exits, and I mean, just a true entrepreneur in the sense that he lived and breathed building things from nothing, in the cybersecurity spectrum, and just was a visionary entrepreneur. And so he was starting a company pretty much on our second date. And I was like, oh, this is really interesting. I'm just listening along and watching him build a company. It was his third company. It's based in Atlanta, called Pindrop Security, and it's an anti-fraud company that fights fraud over the phone for large volume financial institutions and banks. So imagine two PhD guys from Georgia Tech scribbling notes, talking about all these algorithms. I'm sitting beside them on a date going, what are these guys talking about? And fast forward 7 years.
You brought his co-founder on the date?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yes. You know what? It was supposed to be just a quick, we need to make a pit stop, and it lasted several hours. But
Okay.
I tell that story because, a lot of you guys are at the point in your life where you think, but just being so open to things that come your way, and just like keeping your eyes and hearts open for opportunity that you might not recognize, I think is just so key right now.
I totally agree. So talking about technology, you started an investment fund, right? Your own VC fund. How did that even come about? You decided, okay, it's not just to be enough to be an entrepreneur. Now I want to invest in others.
So you know what? That idea of just being fortunate enough to have people to help guide and mentor you through down different avenues and paths in life was something that I'm just really grateful for, whether it came from my family who were supportive of trying different things, or just having people that, perhaps were females or other Black people that had been really successful, and being able to sort of disseminate that to other people. And I will say, you mentioned Real Housewives of Atlanta. One of the reasons why I was even interested in going on the Real Housewives was for that reason. We were in Atlanta, and Atlanta has this burgeoning technology and entrepreneurship scene. We have all these HBCUs, we have Georgia Tech. So there was like this confluence of amazing talent that was technical, that was really wanting to build this startup and technology community. And so, we had spent the past 7 years helping to do that alongside you, Kashi. Like, you've been really instrumental in creating opportunities for others to become better and more successful entrepreneurs. And then I went on the show Real Housewives of Atlanta. And I was really inundated by voices and people in the social media community that were like, this is incredible. We've never seen, a Black woman from Atlanta on a show like this talking about tech and entrepreneurship. And people were reaching out to me with their businesses that weren't just in this technology silo. Amazing founders, building businesses in the service industry, hair, all sorts of consumer product goods. And they were like, I want to know more. I want to share stories. I'm having trouble finding access to capital or markets. And so that's where it really came from. Like, how can we sort of connect and create this community where we can help others be more successful?
Do you think that you have a purpose? Like, have you done that exercise where you've really thought about what is your North Star that really guides you?
Oh, man. I'm starting to do it more.
Sure.
And that's a really great question, because I feel like typically, and hey guys, I'm getting real candid here. I'm 40 now. I've gone to school. I've been on like some separate, different life paths, but I'm not sure if I always had a great answer for what is my North Star of what I want to do, which can be really good. And at the same time, I think it also is reflective of how I sort of live my life, like looking at opportunities and being like, let me try it if it works. But that's really great advice, and being very intentional about, things that you want to strive for in certain amounts of time. So like those goals of like 1 year, 3 years, like what is the North Star of drives you? I think that I also appreciate, I like to follow my passions. So, I enjoy spending time on things that make me happy. And that is a gift. If you can find the ability to work in an area of something that you're super passionate about, that is a luxury that I say you spend a good amount of time thinking about how you can make that happen in life.
Yeah. I think you're a very authentic person. And I love that you embrace exactly what you just said. All the things that are interesting to you. You're a nurse, you're a tech person, you're, into fashion. It's such a variety of interests. How do you, we actually have a question about this. I just saw it. From Chrissy.
Hi, Chrissy.
How do you find the balance between all these? Well, let me ask you a question. How do we find a balance between focusing on professional growth and personal growth? And I think you really have a lot of both. So how do you navigate that?
I love this question because it's a tough one. This idea of we're supposed to live this balanced life of, equal parts, what? So I focus less on balance because I have so many things going on in my life that I'm invariably going to drop the ball on something on a daily basis, on a morning basis. And I feel like that is really difficult because depending on what your personality is, people tend to beat themselves up over that. So you just make your lists and try and be as good as you can, the best that you can during the day, and give yourself the grace, especially in this time of we are in a pandemic, there's global protests, we have Black Lives Matter. And so just giving yourself the grace to do what you can in a day and feel accomplished. And I think that's the key to balance, feeling like accomplished throughout the day. And then as I sort of navigate my personal and professional goals, I just think taking a bit of time to take time for yourself during the day. I've really started using meditation apps, and it's really simple, but I feel like every single person that I know that has been super, super successful tells me they meditate. Every single uber successful people that I look up to as mentors and as people I want to, who I would want to emulate and live my life after, says that meditation has been one of the keys for them. So I'm trying to just better my practice and become better at that. And I feel like it's been a really helpful piece of balancing the stress of, professional goals and your personal zen.
Mm-hmm. Meditation is really key. I've heard the same thing. So it's great advice.
There's so many easy apps out there. It's not like you have to close your eyes and sit in a room. Like there's tons of free apps that are like, welcome to meditation. And it's 3 minutes, 5 minutes, but it is really nice.
And meditation is also, I learned this through, growing up with my parents. It's about practice. You're not just good at it immediately, just like anything else. So don't be scared of it. So we have another question coming in from Sunanda in Philly. She said, I'm trying to dial into my intuition a lot more. Do you have anything that you do or say to yourself to motivate you as you move through work and life?
So I love this question as well, because I find that intuition is one of the things that it's like you either listen to your intuition or you find yourself going, oh, hindsight is 2020. I should have listened to myself. So just taking like a couple seconds. I use this phrase sometimes called be here now, because sometimes we're so busy and the busy work, the busy world, you've got music in one ear, you're checking on social media. And so just taking like literally 3 seconds to stop, like close your eyes and just be like, be here now. I don't know why I've just loved that saying for so long, but it just gives you a second minute in your life to check that you can hear the voice of your heart and your gut that's telling you. So it's like practice, and believe yourself. Believe yourself.
Yeah. Stay in the moment, right? Because
Yep.
there's like so many distractions, like from the past and the future. So I really
Yep.
like that. Be here now. I just want to switch gears. So we talked about tech, and there's a lot going on in the world right now with, Black Lives Matter, even the pandemic right now. What role can the tech community play in helping to bring equity and justice into the world?
This is a question that I think is really tough because we're all struggling. Those of us that, have been moved by this, have witnessed this movement, have experienced, systemic injustice. It's tough because this has been something that's been weighing heavily on a lot of our hearts and experiences for a long time. And one of the things that I love about it is that a lot of business communities and the technology communities have rallied and come together to at least put voices and words out there saying that we are not standing by this. But I do really feel like it is a marathon, and the change that we're seeing is definitely part of this movement towards action. And I think it's going to take a long time. So I think for, technology entrepreneurs in the tech scene, it's really keeping the momentum of the movement of this marathon to create change alive. So it's seen in our companies, in our hiring choices, in the the VC world in general. Like, we're seeing a real uptick in like, how can we help find more minority and diverse founders? But there's a lot of us like Kashi, yourself, and I who have been doing this work and cognizant of it for a long time. And I think that's really part of the key to what causes change. So for example, like Kashi, if you guys know, ran an amazing program called SuperNova South in Atlanta. And I'm stealing your thunder here because I'm sure you're going to mention this. She asked me to be on the board as an advisor because this was years ago. She was very intentional about how she wanted her organization to run and to be indicative of the representation in Atlanta. And so I think having more people of color, having more women in positions of power and pulling each other up is what is going to cause, change. And in the current landscape, we're opening the eyes of a lot of tech companies who are like, how do I fix these gaps? And oftentimes it just means they didn't know. They were like, oh, I wasn't aware. So like continuing to have these voices heard and have these conversations and dialogue, I think is really great. And then for those of you out there, the key for you just as individuals is networking, expanding your networks to people that might not look like you, they might not share the same tastes on weekends, but just being able to have those conversations over water coolers so that we can expand our like social bubbles is really, I think, the grassroots key to this, and calling crap out.
Yeah.
When you see it.
Yeah. Speak up.
Yep.
How do we as women support each other more, I should say? I hate that I even have to ask that question because that's,
but you know what?
breaks my
It is
heart.
such a good question. It does break my heart. But I can remember like years ago, I can't even remember who it was, but I was listening to this woman, some boss woman. She was on a panel and someone asked her this question. And she said, I think she worked in corporate world, and she said, I always make sure I return, and I know this sounds crazy, guys, like my female calls first, because there's a boys club, there's all sorts of clubs, right? And as women, in organizations, like, it's fair for us to be like, hey, I want to give you a little bit extra to help support you, because oftentimes we haven't gotten that support in an equal sense across an organization. And so that's what she said. She's like, I always make sure I call back and give, whatever the woman is asking for support. And sometimes she might not be the right person. I might not be the right person to help you or whatever, but to at least say like, maybe this is the definition, or give people constructive criticism, feedback, etc.
That's great. I often wonder, what do you think about the term, you said she's such a boss, girl boss, boss babe, like all the hashtags that, come. Are those okay? Or is it really just about being a boss? Like, does it have to be a girl boss?
I think it's a bit of both. I kind of love that we're in this era where I think there's some empowerment from it, right? It's one of those things I feel like sometimes I stumble over, well, why do I have to be a Black founder? Or why do I have to be a this,
Right.
And so we go back and forth, and it depends on the day. And I think it's up to everyone how they want to identify, and if they, appreciate those terms, or if they feel like it diminishes, because I think that's the question. A lot of us just want to be worthy of praise outright. It doesn't, they don't want it to have to fall into a category. So I think it's however you choose to identify and whatever sort of empowers you the most.
Yeah, I think that's great. Bo would like to know, which has been more valuable in your career, your education or your experience?
Oh, Bo, good question. My experience. So, and I'll tell you why. I will say that I've worn a lot of different hats. Obviously, working in the medical field, I went through, genetics and nursing. And I will say probably for me, the most hands-on part of that part of my education was getting in the hospital and learning. Like, you learn fast when you walk in and someone's coding in front of you or bleeding out. You learn fast and you never forget it. Whereas I could read a textbook all day on how to resuscitate someone. And, it sinks in, you learn it. But I also feel like I don't remember a lot of that genetics degree. And then same thing with Kashi asked how I got into entrepreneurship. I was basically watching, my boyfriend build a company from a whiteboard to 300 people. And he kept giving me things like, well, can you help with this? And I was like, I'm not technical. I can't do any of this. And, there's a lot of different avenues for people to get involved in technology and entrepreneurship. So he'd be like, you can do it. You can figure it out. And so a lot of it was learning by observation, just diving in and doing it and having good people to coach and mentor me through that. So both are incredibly valuable.
I love what you said about just diving in. I feel like oftentimes we're so paralyzed by having to get things perfect. I know I'm a perfectionist.
Yeah.
You just have to do it.
Yeah.
And then you learn a lot.
And that's really advice that if I'm offering advice to younger people, like I suffer often from imposter syndrome, and especially because I made this career switch and you just had to dive in. And I struggled all the time with going, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not good enough. I'm not this. And you just that's also the opposite of the question that I think someone asked. When you're tuning into that intuitive voice, it's also being able to tune into that voice that's like, oh my gosh, you can't do this. So it's a balance of both and saying, get lost, I'm doing it. And you know what, if I make a mistake, I'm going to make a mistake and just keep going and learn from it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Ricky would like to know who inspires you.
Oh, who inspires me? Well, Beyonce. I'm telling you guys, this woman has an unreal work ethic. I'll tell you a great story. She's a dancer, she's a performer. I was talking to one of her management teams the other day, and they said, oh, when she did the Disney Lion King, this, movie is obviously going to go worldwide, and it needed to be translated into millions of languages. She learned how to sing what's the Lion King song? The Sun Will Rise Tomorrow, whatever, in Mandarin. In Mandarin.
Wow.
Because she just that drive to give the best of what you are. That's just not a little feat for someone who's just a singer, performer, dancer. So her for sure. I'm right now, I don't know if you guys follow her. I love Kat Cole. She has a great story of starting at Hooters, and she now has a great brain and just provides a lot of teaching and learning that I've been following from her on Instagram and Twitter. Who else? I don't know, there's so many people, but those are really great. I'll also say this is a little cheesy, guys, so forgive me, but my fiance is probably one of my biggest mentors, just because he's visionary in a way that I am not. He thinks about things and businesses in a way that is just light years ahead of most people. So I find that just incredible. Yeah, that's to name a few.
Crystal would like to know what you would do differently if you could go back in time.
Oh, what I would do differently if I could go back in time. Okay, so I will say I feel like if I could go back in time and do school different, apart from investing in like Facebook stocks,
That's the best answer we've gotten to a question like this.
Yeah, Amazon. Shoot.
Let's be real.
Yeah, I would have done school a lot differently. For some reason, I just went to school. I didn't like, when I look back in hindsight, I had very few relationships with my teachers because I just thought I could do my work and get out. And I would have done that differently and maybe leveraged a lot of those relationships, because I do feel like, and this happened more, I think, on my second degree. Like I figured it out and I became very connected with the teachers and other programs and opportunities. And networking. Everyone talks about networking, and I always felt it was sort of cheesy, like you had to schmooze. So I didn't really understand that it wasn't schmoozing. It's really, if you look at networking as an authentic way of meeting new people and sharing a piece of yourself, you create a community of people that want to help you. So, and I think that is really key. If you understand, hey, I genuinely met and shared a story with this person. And then Kashi and I circle back to each other on so many different things, because you're like, oh, I thought of you on this and I wanted to maybe make this introduction. And we met at a tech event. But I really would stress to you guys, networking and just staying connected to people.
I think that is such an amazing piece of advice. And when you go to network, you don't go with your hand out. That's what being authentic is, right? You're not looking for somebody to do something to help you. You should go kind of like with a mindset of service. Like, how can I help somebody else? Like, how can I really get to know somebody, which is what you're saying. And then things happen. So, if you connect, energies connect. Okay, let's see. So many questions coming in. Carter has a question. Was there a career setback that you faced that you later realized was an advantage?
Yes. So I'll tell you the big one that I tell this story a lot. So when I went to nursing school, I loved being a nurse and I had a plan. So I was going to be a pediatric nurse. I love kids and I just wanted to work only in peds. It was going to be amazing. And I did all the right things. I was chummy with the dean, like I told you. And then something happened for our last graduating practicum, and I didn't get the sick kids hospital rotation that I wanted, that was in my mind, it was going to be the key to my future. And she was like, well, you've already worked peds a little bit, so we've got to put you somewhere else. And they put me in oncology. And I wrote letters. I was adamant, you people are ruining my life. This is my life plan. And I ended up in oncology and I never looked back, and I never went into peds because I loved it so much. I really, truly feel like it was my calling. And it was one of those things where I was exposed to it by accident. And it was probably one of the best things that ever happened to me. I worked in oncology, bone marrow transplant for over 10 years. And I didn't even know that it was truly my heart.
Are we going to see a health tech startup from you at some point?
It's one of those things I circle around. So I will say one of the first businesses I started grew out of this. So I started a beverage company I was still working in the hospital, and it was called Limitless Smart Shot. And the idea was, why isn't there something to help us be smarter, more focused, and increase our healthy brain function while we're going to work to save all these lives? So I used a lot of my background in health and medicine and working in the neuro units to kind of inform how to create that beverage. But it's still a possibility because I really love nursing. I love caring for people.
Yeah. Natasha would like to know, are you discouraged by what you see in the world today, and how do you stay positive?
Yes, the answer is I have found the past couple of months really tough. Like we were stuck in the house. That part was okay, but just being inundated by messaging and, heavy news and this idea of this global pandemic. So I'm very cognizant of that and those sort of the struggles that we've all had to endure. I would say my biggest outlets for staying positive, I really am grateful for the things that make me happy. Like I took a run this morning listening to like soca music, and I was like singing out loud on a trail. Like it really can change my mood and make me happy. So just finding those little things, whether it's exercise or, a virtual girls' night out where you can have a glass of wine and, share stories with your friends. Like I really cherish those things. And they help like keep me sane for sure.
Yeah. You need a support system of sorts, whether it's people or things or whatever. So you're a big reader. You make time for books. I don't know how you make time with everything you have going on, but that is one of the things that you love, right?
I've always loved reading, and I've always looked at it as like a little bit of escapism. And I just think there's so much beauty in that. Like you can literally transport yourself into different worlds, different people's minds. And I really love that. So I have spent a lot of time during COVID curling up with books. And then I decided to ask other people to join me and started a book club online. And it turns out other people like to read books, which obviously we know, but that's been really fun for me. And it's one of those things that I really enjoy.
So I love that you love to read. I grew up reading as well. We didn't have TV time. We had book time. So my husband always says I haven't seen all these amazing, famous movies because I'm like, I was reading or I was listening to music. Yeah.
I was that too. I also, Kashi, I'll tell you, I was also like growing up in a very African family. So, and especially like you would just be dragged to events. Saturday comes, your parents would be like, get up, we're going to someone's christening that would last 12 hours. And I'd sit there reading a book. And I just was like, I love reading. It was great.
Do you feel like your background and the mix of backgrounds that you have influenced the way you look at the world?
Yeah, but it's one of those things that I took it for granted until I was probably living in the United States and getting much older, because you're just like, oh, this is life, right? Mm-hmm. And I grew up going back and forth to visit family in Ghana, family in London, and it just felt good. I can think back to times when I'd be like, why do we have to go to Ghana? I don't want to go to Africa. I want to go to Disneyland like all the other kids. But then you sort of have a better appreciation for that culture and heritage as you get older. So I'm really grateful for it, and I embrace it.
Yeah, it's great. Going back to the book thing, I was going here and then I distracted myself. Catherine wants to know, she graduated in May, and she wants to know what books you recommend that she reads.
Okay, so I have to caveat this and say I read mostly fiction and for pleasure. So that ranges from like historical biographies to some historical fiction to chick lit to fun. So if you're asking me for a business book, there's there's some that I have that I like, but I typically tend to listen to those. But lately I've been reading a lot of female authors and Black authors. So I just finished a book by Britt Bennett called The Vanishing Half. I really, really enjoyed that. I'm reading this book by an Arab author called Woman is Not a Man, which is like literally wrenching my heart out right now. And I just like to read a lot of different stories from perspectives, that I might not encounter. So, and they tend to be a bit sad and heavy. So I spent the summer going much lighter. Currently reading a book called Party of Two, and it's a love story about an interracial couple. So it's just, you want to dive into it like little 50 Shades of Grey, but fun.
Awesome. Tanya, we have so many questions coming in, but
right.
I know we only have so much time. So I think everyone, we're going to end it there today, but we can always have Tanya back. Hopefully she'd come back for a part 2. And we just really, Tanya, want to thank you for the time that you've spent here with us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys.
Everyone, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say thank you all so much. Congratulations. I know commencements are now virtual and this is par for the course, but I'm sending you like my heartfelt best. I'm wishing you guys all everything that this world has to offer. It's up to you to create it. And I'm so excited that you guys are at the reins right now. So good luck. And in my family, we also say good luck and good application of hard work and study, because that is what you guys have done. And luck is good, but I know that you guys are working hard to get to where you are today. So good luck and good application of hard work and knowledge.
So I can't think of a better way to close us out than that. So ditto as to what Tanya said, okay? And also just drop us a line and let us know what you're up to. We'd love to keep up with what's going on. If you have questions, we'll try to get them answered. And just remember that it's a blessing to be a blessing. So go out in the world and make your mark and stay happy and safe and healthy and all those good things. Thanks, everyone. See you next week. Bye.
Happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday.
Thank you, Kashi.